Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR, HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Welcome to Center Point. I'm your host, Dr. Ron Anbar. In this show, we will discuss ways that we can journey to our own centers. This can help us access our inner resources to improve our physical abilities and health, our mental strength, our emotional well-being, and our spirituality. I'm very glad that we're joined today by my good friend, Dr. Linda Thomson, who will help elucidate and help us clarify for us what she knows about hypnosis, which is an awful lot. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I have a little bio of yours, which is really only gives you a minuscule idea of who Dr. Thomson is. She's an approved consultant in clinical hypnosis for the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, and is the first nurse to ever been awarded diplomate status of the American Board of Medical Hypnosis. She's also the diplomat and the past president of the American Board of Hypnosis and Nursing. Dr. Thomson was one of the presidents for the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. We both got to serve in that capacity and hand off batons to one another. She was also the moderator of the Board of Governors of ASH. She's also been past president of the New England Society of Clinical Hypnosis and is the current president of the Northeastern Mountain Society of Clinical Hypnosis. So lots of leadership roles to which she's very well suited. She was the recipient of the Joseph Bean Hilgard Award for the best paper on pediatric uses of hypnosis that appeared in April 2019 in the American Journal of Clinical Hypnosis. She also received in 2018 the William Wester Award for significant contributions to the field of hypnosis as applied to the treatment of children. And finally, just last March, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. Linda is passionate about education. She's lectured all over the world. She's taught many workshops, taught probably thousands of people how to do hypnosis. She's also author of many book chapters and the 2 Harry Hypnopotamus books of metaphorical tales for children. And Linda's a master in using metaphors, and I hope we'll get into that today. And finally, she's also published Stress-Free Surgery, which is a self-relaxation program to help patients prepare for and recover from surgery. Wow, Linda, you've done a lot.
Yes.
My first question is, how did you even get into hypnosis, and how long ago was that?
Well, back in the 1990s, I was working in primary care pediatrics, and every Tuesday I went to pediatric grand rounds at the local medical center. And this particular Tuesday, the topic was hypnosis and hypnotherapy with children. And I remember one of my colleagues saying to me, "You're not going to that, are you?" and kind of rolling her eyes. And I said, "Well, it's Tuesday. It's free coffee, free donuts. I go every week. Of course I will." And in that hour, I was just amazed at the fact that many of the little techniques and strategies that I used with children to engage their cooperation or help them through a painful procedure were actually hypnotic. I just never would have called it that because I thought hypnosis was sort of woo-woo and something, that they did on stage hypnotist. I didn't know it really had medical uses. So I decided I needed to learn more about this, and so started taking workshops and learning how to incorporate it even more in my practice and all the ways it could be used. And I knew that like myself, there were a lot of, and still are, a lot of healthcare professionals out there who don't really understand and value the effectiveness of hypnosis in medicine.
And, it's obviously you've done wonderful work with it. The question is, what made it about you that the message resonated? Because, as you know, we both are on the mission to get the word out about hypnosis, and yet so many people hear about it and don't pick up the baton. What do you think, what happened in your case that allowed you to transform your career in this fashion?
Well, I think, Ron, for me, when I was 19 and a nursing student, I was in a catastrophic skiing accident and spent months in an intensive care unit on life support, trached and on a respirator and on hemodialysis. And when I looked back on that hospitalization, I realized that there were so many times that if nurses or physicians had understood about hypnosis and the power of the mind, and it would have been so incredibly helpful to me to get me through that horrendous experience. So I think that is probably central to why I was just so taken with hypnosis.
It's interesting. So it was really a personal experience, and I think that's actually a clue for us who want to get the word out, is how to make it personal to the health care providers. And of course, we don't have to have an accident or anything like that. But I think we who want to spread the word need to consider how to make it more relevant than just, it's a nice tool. Because as we both know, it's much greater than that. Can you share, please, like some of the patients you use hypnosis with and what kind of success you've had?
Sure. Being in primary care pediatrics, I definitely had children come in who were afraid of getting an injection, and I would kind of lump them into two categories. There were those who were truly fearful, and then the other group who got a lot of secondary gain. They didn't like shots, but they realized if they put up a little fuss, and their mother would say, we'll go and get you a toy afterwards or something like that. So, whoa, hey, if I scream and cry and kick, I get a present. And those kids weren't as much fun to work with as the ones who were truly fearful. I had this one teenager who came in who, when he was 18 months old, his 3-year-old brother was diagnosed with leukemia and started leukemia treatments and chemotherapy and a lot of blood work and other things. And his mother had to take this little 18-month-old along to the appointments. And so here this little 18-month-old is watching his 3-year-old brother, have IVs and injections and blood draws and all this. And it really cemented in his psyche this terrible fear of needles. And so he had gone through childhood where getting injections were a terrible experience for him. And as a teenager, the physician that he saw thought, hypnosis might really be helpful. And so we worked together, and he overcame this deep-seated fear that he had of injections and did quite well. And I always wanted him to videotape him talking about it, but he was a little shy about that, so I unfortunately never got him on videotape, but he's just a wonderful memory for me of a child that I worked with.
How did you help him? Did you use metaphors? Did you put him in a trance? What did you do with him?
Well, a combination of things. I gave him tools to self-regulate his anxiety. We also played with syringes and injecting fruit. And we also imagined, in his imagination, him being successful and how good that was going to feel. And we talked a lot about how the fear had gotten started and stuck. And we played a lot in the office, and we put him in control, that when he thought, it wasn't going to happen because he needed some injection, I can't remember what it was, and he wasn't going to get it until he felt he was ready, because he was in control. And that was real important to him, the control part of it, because, what had happened to his brother was certainly out of his control and the brother's control. So he was certainly a lot of fun to work with.
How old was he when you were working with him on his needle phobia?
About 14.
About 14. Wow. So you've always been, ever since I've known you, and I think it's been 20 years plus already, you've been a master of using metaphors, and I gather you were using them before you even learned about hypnosis. Can you tell us a little bit about what metaphors do and why they might be a good tool?
Well, I guess some people kind of think in metaphors, and I guess that's what would describe me, because they bypass the conscious resistance, and it's kind of like storytelling, really. I mean, when we were little, we all heard the story of the hare and the tortoise, or the ugly duckling, and those are all metaphors that have a real lesson attached to them. They're not, the lesson isn't always spelled out, although in Aesop's fables there's always a moral of the story. And using metaphors in hypnosis, the moral of the story isn't always explicit, because it's much more powerful if the individual figures out, that applies to me. I can see that situation. So it bypasses their resistance to change. It's playful. You can talk metaphorically about my friend John. This situation happened to him, which was very similar to whatever problem they have. And it just works. And, of course, kids love stories. And the best metaphors come from the kids, that they think up, what to do with their pain. I had a little girl, and she imagined going and playing with her panda, and then she had this headache, and she'd shoot it out of a cannon, or she'd slingshot it away, and she came up with all the stories of ways that she could use to help herself with the headache.
So somewhere in the metaphor world is where I assume Harry Hippopotamus was born. Could you tell us a little bit about how he came to be, and what kind of feedback have you gotten with him?
I decided to write a story to introduce hypnosis to children. And so since hippopotamus and hypnopotamus sound very good together, I decided to go with a hippo. So he was afraid of getting an injection, and he used his imagination to help get him through the injection by pretending he was in a mud puddle and blowing bubbles. And then he had a toothache, and so again he tapped into his imagination to help with the pain. He was being moved to a new place in the zoo, and he was a little scared about new experiences. And again, he used his imagination to imagine what it would be like and feel like and smell like. And then when he got there, he wasn't so scared. And so it was a nice way to just introduce children to how they could use the power of their imagination in all different ways to help themselves. So a local artist drew some pictures for me and printed it up in this little book. And I was speaking at a conference up in Canada, and a book publisher, Crown House Publishing, saw this little book and said, well, we'd like to publish this, but could you write more stories about different problems? And I didn't want to turn poor Harry into this hapless hippo with a million problems. So I thought, well, he lives in a zoo, so each of the animals in the zoo could perhaps learn hypnosis to help with a distinct problem. And so that's how the Hairy Hippopotamus tales were born. And I thought initially I could write 1 or 2 or 3 stories, and they just kept coming to me about animals who had a problem with bedwetting or sucked their thumb or had headaches or were facing surgery, and it just kind of mushroomed from there.
Wonderful. And if somebody wants to buy the Hairy Hippopotamus books, how do they do that?
Well, they're available through the publisher, Crown House Publishing. They're also available through Walmart and through Amazon.com.
Cool. And so what kind of feedback have you gotten on the stories? They've been in print, I think, almost a decade, right, or even longer?
Yes. Well, it warms my heart when I hear about children who have either picked up the book and read it themselves, or therapists who were working with a child and were kind of stuck and needed a direction to go in, and used some of the metaphors and some of the language in my books to help them with their patients. Recently, with the war in Ukraine, I was asked to develop a multimedia presentation for Ukrainian children. So Harry Hypnopotamus once again taught breathing exercises and other self-regulatory strategies, and the text was translated into Ukrainian and read in Ukrainian, and then the local television station created a YouTube video, and also it's on several other videos for Ukrainian children. So I'm really excited about that.
That was wonderful. I can attest, I've used some of the Harry Hypnopotamus stories with my own patients. Sometimes they sit
wonderful.
down and they listen, and we read the story, and we talk about it. So I can attest to the effectiveness of Harry and his pals.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for writing those books and for your contribution to the world.
Thank you. Each of the animals in the book are named after someone in the field of hypnosis, and Dr. Ron Anbar happens to be in the book as a rhinoceros who suffers from vocal cord dysfunction and is able to resolve that problem using hypnosis.
Yes, and in the future we'll talk about vocal cord dysfunction in this program, because I used to deal with a lot of kids like that when I was practicing as a pediatric pulmonologist. So thank you for that mention as well, Linda. So you've been doing hypnosis for, I guess, more than 2 decades now, almost 3 decades, unbelievably. Is there one particular patient that you remember, or besides that young man with the needle phobia, that you could share about?
Oh, wow. There's just a flood of them in my mind. One girl with just intractable headaches. She was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and because she already had liver damage from the cystic fibrosis, she was no longer able to take Tylenol or ibuprofen for her headaches. And so she learned hypnosis and strategies to help her, and it turned her life around using them. There was another boy I worked with, and he was 12 years old with anxiety, and he liked biofeedback a lot, so we had some heart rate variability biofeedback equipment that he used, and it helped him with his anxiety. But then about 4 years later, he had burns over a large percentage of his body during an explosion, and he was taken to Shriner's Burn Institute, and his mother told me afterwards that he never would have made it through that experience and all the burn dressings and everything else had he not had the experience of learning hypnosis, 4 or 5 years before.
Wow. Can you explain how biofeedback works, the heart rate variability, what that means?
Sure. Normally, every time you inhale, your heart rate speeds up just slightly, and when you exhale, because it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, it slows down just a little, and that's a healthy, normal thing. When people get anxious, there isn't that coherence between inhalation and exhalation and the heart rate. So with heart rate variability biofeedback, kids wear a little sensor either on their finger or their ear, and it's picking up their heart rate. And on the computer screen, there's different, like a picture in black and white, and if they can relax their breathing and relax themselves, then colors and animals and flowers and stuff come into the picture, or they can bring a rainbow down to a pot of gold. And if they stay relaxed, they can accumulate money in the pot of gold. So it's a wonderful thing for kids who are even kids who are a little skeptical about hypnosis, who try the biofeedback, and if they're not doing very well at it, I can say, would it be all right if I showed you some techniques that might help you? Oh, yeah. And then I get into the strategies of breath work and relaxation that would help them succeed on the biofeedback. There's also one of the games in it where you just see colors, either red, blue, or green, that's like coming out of stars. And so I will suggest that they, relax and breathe, and they'll get it to green, which is showing high coherence. So think of something stressful, and boom, the color changes, and it's like, wow, they didn't even feel it, but yet their body picked up on it. And then I suggest that they do what they know how to do to go back to that high coherence, and then they visually see how this stuff works on their body.
And once they learn to do that with the aid of the machine, they can do it on their own? Is that how it works?
Absolutely, yes. They own it.
So then
and that's the great thing about working with kids. You give them a gift that, they own for their lifetime.
Wow. Thank you for all your sharing with us. After the break, I would love to hear your thoughts about what you wish the public knew about hypnosis, and if you have any tips for the public from what you've learned in the hypnosis world that they can start using even today. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Audiobooks gives you instant access to over 50,000 of the best sellers and hottest book titles in romance, mystery, fiction, and many other genres. Just visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on Audiobooks to get started.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
More exhilarating talk. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar and our very special guest, Dr. Linda Thomson. We've been talking about how hypnosis how she's used hypnosis throughout her practice, how she used metaphors, how Harry the hippopotamus was born. And I was hoping that we would talk now about what Dr. Thomson thinks would be great for the public to know about hypnosis, what would be the core message that we want people to know about how they can help themselves? Linda, what do you think?
Well, I think that, I have certainly experienced in my lifetime, both personally and with my patients, the power of hypnosis and its effectiveness in the medical realm. One of my favorite ways to use it is with surgery patients because it makes such a difference with the anxiety pre-surgery and the recovery post-op, decreasing their pain, decreasing nausea, increasing healing. It makes such a difference. For people with IBS, it is basically the treatment of choice. For people with vocal cord dysfunction as well, the treatment of choice. There are just so many uses for it. People don't realize, they're looking sometimes for a pill, a procedure, a surgery to solve their problem when tapping into their own inner abilities, inner strength, inner resources is so effective. And I just wish that more people in the medical field, both nurses, physicians, would recognize this underutilized yet highly effective therapeutic modality.
What do you think has prevented people from knowing this? Hypnosis has been around in its modern form for 70 years. In 1950s, the American Medical Association and the British Medical Society recognized hypnosis as an effective tool for pain control, and yet I never learned about it in medical school, and I suspect you didn't hear about it in nursing school. Maybe you heard about it in nursing school, I don't know.
Oh.
But it's not accepted. What are the hurdles, do you think?
I think one of the hurdles is the name, hypnosis, the H word, that people automatically think of, Svengali or the way it's referred to in movies and TV, and also certainly with stage hypnotist shows that they think it's mind control. And even now there's a commercial I frequently see on TV about, I think it's for nicotine replacement therapy, and they're talking about, all these things you could do to quit smoking, like try hypnosis, as if hypnosis, was just woo-woo and not effective. So I think it's a lot of negative stuff. Meditation, mindfulness has really taken off, and there's a lot of similarities, and people accept that. However, that H word just, gets in the way, unfortunately.
Would you advocate changing the H word or educating people about it?
Well, definitely educating people, but it's still a high hill to climb, I'm afraid, and we have to do a lot more education, and I agree that it should be right in medical school, it should be right in nursing school. Even changing the language that people use. Ron, there's a difference between saying, this is going to hurt, from you may be surprised how little this needs to bother you. Just a little thing. It's not even hypnosis in trance. It's just paying attention to language, and that can make a big difference.
You
Power of our words.
Right. You teach a workshop named Power of the Words. I'm wondering, is there any word power that you can share with our audience that they can just use to help improve their lives without formal hypnosis?
Sure. Just as I said, instead of this is really going to hurt or you're going to be in a lot of pain after your surgery, changing it to, the sensations you feel will be those of healing and mending and need not bother you. And again, you may be surprised how little this bothers you. Is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable? Or this medication will help you help yourself with that discomfort rather than, try this for your pain. Because try, signifies, maybe it will work and maybe it won't. But just by saying when it's more helpful and using words like comfort instead of always pain, or even using discomfort, because of what's the bigger part of the word discomfort? It's comfort. So helping people think about things differently and paying attention to language.
You mentioned the word try. I read a book recently by Dr. Pat McCarthy, and when he explained even more about try, and I never thought about it this way, well, if we talk about something we've done in the past that didn't work, we said we tried doing it. So whenever you apply try in the past, it always implies failure. Like if you did something that succeeded, you say, I did it.
Exactly, yes.
Try has a lot of negative connotations, and that's actually one word that our audience can perhaps work on avoiding when they are working on doing something else. You do something and you either succeed or you could do it better next time, but you don't try it, you just do it.
Right. And even the contractions and but make such a difference, which is something I never paid attention to. But and connects two things, and but really negates what went before it. So that you hear what comes after. So, for instance, someone who's facing surgery, now we know that they have to have informed consent and be informed about every possible thing that could go wrong. So if someone is, talking, we're going to fix your knee and it's, you'll be without pain, and there are a lot of complications that could happen. It connects the two. But if you talk about the complications that might possibly happen and then use the conjunction, but you will be amazed at how much better your knee is going to feel and your mobility. So the but negates what they've just heard about the complications. So what they remember is that positive expectancy that they're going to feel better.
That's really interesting. So, like, how would a parent use that? Let's say a child is not doing their homework and just procrastinating. How would the parent use positive language with that child? I don't know if you'd use and but in there, but how would you frame that?
I know that sitting here when it's such a lovely day outside is difficult for you, but you may be amazed at how quickly you'll finish and can go outside and enjoy the fresh air.
Really cool. So that's something that people can be mindful of and then use in their own life without hypnosis. Just the way you phrase things to yourself or to your loved ones has such a big effect on them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of many times that healthcare professionals who are not language savvy will say things that have a negative effect without even realizing. Can you give an example of that?
Oh, I
Besides
certainly.
It's going to hurt a little bit. That's a common one.
I certainly can. I had shoulder surgery, and following the shoulder surgery, the surgeon came out in the recovery room and said to my husband and I, who were sitting there, well, we found a lot more damage in your shoulder than we expected, so when the scalene block wears off, you can anticipate being in a tremendous amount of pain. That is what we call a negative suggestion. I, however, never took any pain medication following the surgery, and I never knew he even said that because on the hypnosis recording I had created for myself, I gave myself the suggestion that the sensations I would feel after surgery would be those of healing and mending and need not bother me. And if anyone said anything to me that was less than helpful, it would be as if they were speaking in a foreign language that I did not understand.
Wow. And did you clue your physician in, the surgeon, about what happened?
I certainly did. And a few years later, I needed knee surgery. So when I went back, he said, we could give you general spinal, or you could do your hypnosis stuff. And so I said, okay, we'll do hypnosis. So when they wheeled me into the operating room for the knee surgery, they had playing Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way.
I love it. Dr. Linda Thomson, thank you so much for sharing such wonderful stories, sharing your own personal life, which helped, of course, color your experience. And I'm hoping you help inspire many, many people to look into themselves, into their own centers as a way of helping themselves rather than depending on medications or listening to people who are giving them suggestions that are less than helpful. So again, Linda, thank you so very much. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.
Make-A-Wish has been granting life-changing wishes for children and families for over 40 years. A wish is something that gives children the opportunity to look outside their illness and restore a sense of childhood back to the child. With the help of donors and more than 43,000 worldwide volunteers, Make-A-Wish has collectively granted more than 520,000 wishes worldwide. Dr. Anbar has referred many patients to Make-A-Wish. To make a donation, go to worldwish.org. That's worldwish.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
Reach your health and fitness goals. Whether you want to lose weight, learn to dance, build muscle, or just live healthy, Beachbody gives you unlimited access to the nation's most popular fitness and weight loss solutions. Visit our advertiser page and click on Beachbody now.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Every year since opening Centerpoint Medicine, Dr. Ron Ambar has been overwhelmed with demand for his services. So much so that he has established a first-of-its-kind franchise opportunity. As a franchise owner of the leading pediatric hypnosis counseling center in the U.S., you'll be at the forefront of an exciting sector of healthcare as you increase your revenue. With low overhead and full support, it's your time to take advantage of this franchise opportunity. Just call 858-997-3196. That's 858-997-3196.
All positive talk with a mature edge. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar. That was wonderful hearing Linda's ideas about how metaphors can be helpful, how words are important, and they're all about how to help ourselves and help our loved ones feel better, do better, and live better. In this segment of the show, I have been telling you about the experiences that I've had with patients over time, and I told in recent weeks about how I ended up going into medicine. And today I'd like to share a somewhat sad story regarding patients with cystic fibrosis. As we have discussed before, CF is a disease that you're born with and damages lungs over many years. In the days when I started getting involved with this, patients with this disease, the average patient lived to be in late teens to early 20s. And now, fortunately, because of new therapies, people can live much longer, maybe even a normal lifespan. But this, again, is a story from coming up 30 years ago, or over 30 years ago. And even though at the time patients with CF did not do well, I learned a lot from them. And what I learned, I then applied in my work with patients without cystic fibrosis and my work in the worlds of hypnosis. So this is a story I wrote back in 1989. It was based on interviews I had had with one patient who had cystic fibrosis, and I interviewed him for over a period of 6 years. And it's actually written backwards, so it starts from the present, which was July of 1989, and works its way backwards. And this is the patient talking. I dreamed that I died last night. It wasn't a pleasant feeling. I was floating in the air above my body. It was lying in a coffin. It was peaceful for a few seconds, lying there. But then I realized what was happening. I woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. I've dreamed about dying before, but never like this. Like I'd be in a big battle, shooting down the enemy with a machine gun, and then being shot. But this dream was different. I can't believe this is happening to me. It doesn't seem real. I feel like I'm in a haze. If you told me 2 weeks ago that I would be this sick this soon, I'd have said you're crazy. I mean, here I am talking about dying. Every friggin' day is worse. Every day when I don't get better is like another nail being driven into my coffin. I feel so weak. I don't even feel like getting up to take a dump. Can you believe it? Something natural like that. I don't even want to do that. I feel dizzy when I get up, really woozy, like I'm drunk. I hate waking up in the morning and feeling choked. Sometimes I don't want to wake up. I had no idea it would be this bad. I thought I'd be sick for a week or two, and then that would be it. When I came in for cleanouts, I thought, geez, this is really bad. I have to miss school. I miss my friends. But I didn't know how bad it could be. This really sucks. When we talked 3 years ago, all I was worried about was who I was going to take to the freshman prom, how easy that was. I'm not even coughing well anymore. It used to be so easy. I would come in for a clean-out, and then in a few days, I'll be back on my feet. No big deal. I guess things get harder when you get older. I'm glad I lived 20 years. I wouldn't do anything differently. I had a good life, good friends. Maybe tonight I'll write little notes to my parents and friends. Personal notes, if I feel up to it. I don't think I'm going to make it out through the front doors of the damn hospital. It's like a little voice inside me telling me that. It's not that I've given up hope. It's just this little voice. You know what I mean? June 1989, which is a month beforehand. Am I going to make it? I don't know. I said, what you've got to try to do today is to receive as much chest physiotherapy as possible. You're getting antibiotics and other drugs to help you breathe. He said, there is an old proverb, parting as a little death. It's so true. I said, I want you to know that our relationship will spur me to find a treatment for this disease. He said, I am glad. I hope you find it, even if it's too late for me. I said, you won't be forgotten. That's what people tell me. March 1986, 3 years before that. What bothers me most about my disease is that I can't keep up with my friends. Like when we're walking, I have to slow down after a while, and they have to slow down and walk with me. I used to pretend that I wasn't sick and would give my mother a hard time. But now I've accepted my illness. I make sure to do my physical therapy every day because it's for my own good. I guess I've grown up. I sometimes think about dying. I wonder how it's going to happen. Am I going to be driving a car and just drop dead? Or am I going to get really sick one day? When a friend of mine died last year, it really put me off the track for a week, but it doesn't bother me all the time. When I talk with other kids, we never talk about it. We all know what it's about. If I met a 10-year-old with my disease, I wouldn't want to tell him anything in particular. I wouldn't want to scare him. If it weren't for my illness, I would want to be an airline pilot. But right now I want to be a phlebotomist after I finish high school. I want to get married. I would marry someone who would understand me and my disease. I would never have kids because I wouldn't want them to go through what I've gone through, and I wouldn't want to go through it as a parent. I suppose it would have been better if I hadn't been born. It would have been easier on my parents and me. But I've never felt like calling it quits. Sometimes when I see another kid throw their life away, like doing drugs, and they'll probably die in an accident, I wish they had my disease instead of me. I don't want to be a burden on my parents. It's hard for them to come to the hospital every day. I don't even like to ride here every 3 months. They never had any children after me. My parents were divorced the same year that my disease was diagnosed. They both remarried, but still don't have any other kids. August 1983, that's 3 years before that. Look at that fountain with all those coins. I said, do you know why there are pennies in there? He said, sure. People make wishes there. Do you know what I would wish for if I had one wish? I said, something serious? Something serious. I said, tell me. I would wish for a cure for cystic fibrosis. I said, I hear you. He said, can I have a penny? So that was Henry, one of my earlier patients with cystic fibrosis. And interestingly, when we had our last conversation recorded in this essay, he stayed alive. He didn't die right away. That's one of the things about cystic fibrosis. It was always hard to tell exactly when the end was there. So even though my attending doctors told me to say goodbye to him, he continued living. And he actually lived for 2 more years. He passed away 2 years later, I had moved to another hospital, and he actually called me the day before his death to say goodbye, which was very meaningful, and I think was a testament to the bond we had formed. Working with Harry, I talked to you about him a couple weeks ago. Working with Henry, that served as a important part of my life that inspired me to do what I do today. And thinking back to those days, if I was working with Henry now and knowing much how to reach the inner core, I would have coached him that he can listen to himself and perhaps realize that his essence will continue even after his death. I think I would have been able to counsel him much better in terms of coping with that very, very difficult time in his life. And of course, he lives on in my memory and in my work forevermore. This is Dr. Ron Anbar, and this is Centerpoint.
More than 30,000 children and adults of every race and ethnic group in the U.S. have cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a disease causing long-lasting lung infections, limiting the ability to breathe over time. Dr. Anbar participated in research that helped advance survival of cystic fibrosis patients by more than 20 years. He encourages you to donate to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation to help find a cure. It's easy to donate. Go to cff.org. That's cff.org.
HealthyLife.net, the positive radio network.
If you are a medical or licensed healthcare professional or just anyone looking for a qualified hypnosis practitioner, then go on over to ASCH.net. That's the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. At ASCH.net, you can get certified, attend workshops, and even find a hypnosis practitioner or consultant. ASCH provides an opportunity to learn and interact with colleagues. So whether you're a professional wanting to learn hypnosis or a patient wanting help with a problem, visit ASCH.net now.
Constant Contact and your small business make a perfect fit for marketing. They give you what you need to succeed. Fast and easy email marketing at your fingertips. Visit the HealthyLife.net advertiser page and click on Constant Contact to start your marketing.
Healing and changing children's lives with hypnosis is very real and very possible. Dr. Ron Ambar's new book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, provides you meaningful stories and expert explanations to show you not only the process of hypnosis, but its many benefits for overall wellness. Whether a parent, practitioner, or medical doctor, this book opens the way to complete connection, so necessary for healing. Get your copy of Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis at Amazon.com or visit dranbar.com.
HealthyLife.net, where positive overcomes negative.
Dr. Ron Ambar and his dedicated team of healthcare providers offer unique health services to help patients overcome psychological roadblocks or use the power of their minds to improve their overall health and well-being. At Centerpoint Medicine with services in La Jolla, California and Syracuse, New York, this caring staff are waiting just to help you. Find out more at centerpointmedicine.com. Can't wait? Make your appointment now. Call 858-201-4001. That's 858-201-4001.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to Centerpoint. I'm your host, Dr. Ron Anbar. In our last segment, we always teach about things you can start doing today to help yourself and your family. And today I wanted to talk to you about how you can best help your children as they grow up in terms of improving communication between you and your child and helping the children figure out how they can help themselves, which is, of course, an important key to doing well in life, is the knowledge that answers to life's issues lie within. And therefore, there are always answers to no matter what confronts you. So there are three principles that I would like to explore today that you can use when dealing with your children, especially teenagers, but also preteens. And the three principles are: the first one is respect your child. The second one is the principle of active listening. And the third principle is remaining non-judgmental or accepting of the child's point of view. So let's start with respecting children. I grew to respect children more and more over the years, especially when I learned to interact with the children's subconscious through hypnosis. And in future shows we'll discuss how to do that. But basically when a child's subconscious interacts with me, and sometimes they do it in full sentences, I've been told stories by children as young as 8 or 9, explaining why they behave the way they do, or why they think the way they do. And what I've always been struck, just like with Paul, my very first patient with hypnosis, is by the great knowledge and wisdom that children have, even at a very young age. And I will tell you that one of the reasons that teenagers don't act wisely is because they don't think properly. And that's based in the brain development. So the front lobe of the brain does not develop fully until you're in your late 20s. So as a teenager, you don't have full use of the frontal lobe. And the role of the frontal lobe, among different things, is to help make decisions properly, help control impulses. So if you don't have that, you end up with an impulsive teenager who does thoughtless things. But that doesn't mean they don't know what is right and wrong. And when you interact with their subconscious, or you listen carefully, they'll tell you what is right and what is wrong. They even know what the behavior should be. And so when you deal with your children, you want to keep that in mind. You don't have to tell them what's right and wrong. I mean, tell them once, obviously, tell them twice, but then you can realize they know it. And if you tell them a third or fourth or 10th time, they're going to be annoyed with you, and they may shut you off as a parent. So trust that they know, and if you want to ensure they know, then you can engage the second tool, which is active listening. So active listening involves paying close attention to your child and listening actively. So don't be using your phone while the child talks to you. Don't be engaged in other activity, but turn your full attention on the child and have them tell you what they think. And once they told you what they think, repeat back and say to them, what I understood you to say is this. Now at that point the child might say, no, that's what I meant. If they say no, then say, well, tell me again. I'm going to listen very carefully. And if they say, yes, that's what I meant, then you can go ahead and tell them what you think. And then you might ask your child to repeat back what they heard you say. And this is what's called active listening. So by doing so, a number of good things happen. First of all, the child knows you're paying attention. Now, by the way, when you repeat what the child says, don't repeat it verbatim. Then you might not be thinking about it. Tell them what you heard the sense of the sentence to say. So the child knows you've been listening carefully. And if you didn't hear them correctly, it gives the child the opportunity to rephrase it in a way that perhaps you'll hear it better. And then the child knows you value their opinion. And similarly, when you talk to your child and you ask them to repeat back what they heard you say, it helps you ensure that they have registered what you've said. So many times parents will yell at their children about how they can correct the behavior. Not only does the yelling shut down the child doesn't even listen, they may not even hear the message. So I've had parents who've told their children in the parent's mind very clearly what they should do, but when I ask the child, what did you hear, it turns out the child didn't register it at all. And by the way, if your child is angry or if you're angry, that's not the time to teach. That's the time to cool off. So go cool off, let the child cool off, and then come back and discuss the issue so you're more apt to hear each other. So that's the second principle, active listening. The third principle is be non-judgmental or accepting of what your child says. So if your child says their opinion about something, please don't say that's stupid or that makes no sense, because that's disrespectful. If the child is speaking with you in a calm state as opposed to an angry state, this is what they truly think. So treat them with respect and say, well, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, assuming you disagree, and then give them alternatives. Well, I wonder if you could think about it this way or this way. And most children, if you don't confront them, will say, maybe that is a better way of thinking about things. And this way you can help shape the child's behavior. Now, what happens if the child thinks about something in the wrong way? Let's say a teenager wants to go to a party with there's going to be alcohol served, and an older teenager for this example, and you think that's not a good idea. You could, as the parent, pull out the authority. You will not go to that party because it's wrong or it's illegal. But if you pull out that kind of card too often, you absolutely won't do it because I said so. Your child not only will ignore you, will just find a way of hiding things from you, which you don't want. So you might say, if you go to a party where alcohol is served, some things can happen that people might not expect, or there could be bad outcomes, or there could be a raid, or whatever. So give your reasoning, and then the child should listen and hopefully make the right decision. But if they're making the wrong decision, well, I hear what you said, but I still want to go to the party, then you say, okay, this is for, by the way, a child 16, 17, older child. You could say, well, I disagree with you, but it's your choice, it's your life. What I tell parents of older teenagers, by the time the child is 18 and leaves home, you will have no idea what's going on in the child's life. And if the child doesn't know how to take care of him or herself, they're going to fall apart. So better you should let them make the wrong decision while they're still at home, and if things do go wrong, you're around to help pick up the pieces. So let them make the wrong choice. Many parents are very scared of the child making the wrong choice, and they prevent them from making the wrong choice. Unfortunately, that does not teach a child how to deal with wrong choices. Things don't work. So you have children who have never experienced failure because their parents have protected them from failure. And when they get to college, for example, and they fail, because we all fail at some point, they don't know what to do about it. So allow your child the privilege of failing and then picking themselves up. And if need be, you can step in. So the three principles, again, are respecting your children, using active listening, and being non-judgmental. Let them make their own choices, except if it's a matter of life and death. And in this way, you'll raise much healthier children, especially on the mental front. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to next week's show with Dr. Rebecca Cherry. She's a pediatric gastroenterologist who will tell us about how hypnosis helped in her practice. This is Centerpoint with Dr. Ron Anbar.